travelled down to Bluebell Railway, which is a wonderful place. I've been there once before, and I really wanted to get back with the camera and go and enjoy it, you know. We're able to see things now, and there's nothing better than sticking your head outside a coach door and just breathe in the fresh air, as well as a bit of soot going in your eye from time to time, and you get lots of it stuck in your hair, which is fantastic. It all comes out when you have a shower later. I arrived at Bluebell and they had the Q class going, as well as some other locos. I mainly went on the Q class and I loved it. It had such a bark when it got going. It was stunning, and I was so impressed with it. I always thought, you know, not much of these, because they don't look like what I'm used to with my Great Western Railway engines with, I don't know, certain shaped boilers and everything, whereas this is more like one of the 4Fs that you see. But I don't know, it has a certain charm about it once you spend a bit of time with it, and it was very shiny. They'd really looked after it. But I've got a clip here with it just moving forwards from I think it just filled up some water, and just listen to this. That made a few people jump, and it was very enjoyable. A bit of a roar as it comes past. But whilst I was there was a second-hand shop, and I really wanted to pick this up. I saw a V2 that they had there, an LNER one, and to be honest, looking at it, it was £70. It was the older style one with the old split chassis. I know the new ones have come out more recently, but £70, nice heavy loco. I thought, let's do this. I'm sure I can improve anything that's not right with it. Well, we'll see, won't we? But it's in the BR livery, and you know, whilst I saw it, it reminded me of the Flying Scotsman type shape of how the boiler is and everything, and it's a stunning looking loco, and it's something that I think would be a nice addition to the railway. It won't fit in with my Great Western bits, but it will certainly look good. So what do I want to do with it? I want to add tender pickup, because it doesn't come with that, because it's quite an old loco, and with that I'm going to put a copper clad board underneath, which I need to make to a certain size to fit in. So my first plan was to basically, we're going to draw a piece, so measure up what gap we have, and we're going to drop in a little circuit board underneath, and with that we're going to use some copper clad fiberglass, and we're going to put some phosphor bonds, a wire on there, and that will touch onto the wheels, and that will give us our, well, you know, our power. So with this, you know, I've 3D printed a piece that's fitted in. Now I need to make out of the copper clad circuit board, which, you know, you can use for all sorts of things. Popping into the garage, I've got a CNC machine, so let's make it. Let's make some noise and have some fun. Now this is just an engraving process you do to begin with, and it gets rid of like a bird edge that I always enjoy not having on parts. Burrs are one of the worst enemies of anyone that's into machining. I like machining, therefore I don't like burrs. After that, I go on and do a bit of machining. Let's go and carve the shape out, and we go from there. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up the process now with the power of the editing software, and we'll fly through it. One of the nice things about being able to do this yourself, you can prototype things, you can have some fun. You could do this manually, you know. You could cut it out with, I'm sure, a saw or very sharp Stanley knife blade, and then crack it to the right shape, and you'd have exactly what you want. But because I enjoy making things, one of the beauties of it are I can make things very accurately, and I make it a bit more of a project, make it a bit more enjoyable, let's say. But it's also mesmerising watching it all move around, isn't it? With that done, just a little bit of a clean up needed. I pick it off the board, and it should be good. I just kind of make sure there's no burrs on the edges, and then run a tiny bit of Scotch-Brite over the top, and it'll be more than good enough. Then back up to the room. Putting it in place, I'm just going to stick it down with super glue when it comes to it, but I need to solder on these Fossil Bonds rods. I bought this off eBay, just a little packet. It didn't cost too much, and I've used it for various other projects as well. Using a bit of solder, a bit of flux, I then put them on. Once you've worked out where they go, it's pretty simple. I've got 2 in 1 on this one, and we'll just solder it down the middle, just being careful not to, I kind of, put a good solder joint on, but I don't want to get it all so hot that it starts, I don't know, trying to lift the copper off the fiberglass that's underneath it. But these in place, I'm pretty happy actually with how this process went. If I did it again, I'd probably change the shape of the copper clad circuit board, because it was actually quite hard to get the wheels on during this. But soldering these on wasn't difficult at all, and I've got other logos that could do with this happening to it. I know you can buy some little pickups for the wheels, and you can just put them on, but doing this process yourself is actually very enjoyable. Something really enjoyable, in fact. This is a thicker super glue, it's a rocket glue, and just put 2 dabs on. If I ever have to rip it off, I can, that's okay. Once that's done, I cut off the excess of the pickups, and after doing this, I spent a little bit of time manipulating them and bending them until they fitted properly, and put a tiny bit of pressure on the wheels. You don't have too much, otherwise the wheels aren't going to go around at all, but just enough pressure basically is what you need to put on, and you'll soon be able to work that out for yourself when you're working on it. As you can see, nice and easy, job done, wheels move. The next step I haven't recorded because I got slightly stressed when I took the body off and realised it was a split chassis at the time. Wasn't too hard. I used a bit of heat shrink to insulate the terminals of the motor, which is then to obviously stop it contacting the split chassis, and then ran the wires down the middle. And yeah, I've connected the wires that are going to go to the tender up with the pickups that go to the rear pony. So anyway, I just basically put the multimeter on it, make sure everything basically terminates. So you're just checking that there's continuity, and yeah, that's all I had to do really. And once that was all working, I'm happy to then connect it up to the tender. but I do need to make sure that the power works. So I've got a little PP3 9V battery, and it works. The wheels spin, which is always good. So now I want to connect up the two. I put a hole in the tender to allow the power to go from under to over, from the various wires, and it gets a bit messy, but it's only 4 wires ultimately what you need to be dealing with, but I've duplicated the red and the black because of what needs to be going on. But into the tender comes 4 wires, and that's all we need. At the moment it's a bit messy, but you'll get the gist of it if you ever go at doing this yourself, and that's going to be having a plug going on the end of it. Now what I want to do is hide these wires, so I just put some paint on, nice and simple, some acrylic paint, and that'd be that. And yeah, I just thought we want to minimise how obvious this is. If you look closely, yes, you'll spot that there's some wires going over, but I'm happy. Now we need to add some sound. Obviously the 4F's been barking away, we'd like to have a bit of a bark ourselves, and I'm using a U-Choose decoder here. It's a Zimo chip, and U-Choose make the sound for it. And the wonderful thing is there's lots of adjustable bits on these, which is very, very cool, like I guess with many of them that are out there. But that's our decoder there, and obviously it's all pre-wired, so that's going over to the connector, which will be plugging into the socket that we're going to install. Then we've got the capacitor there, which is our stay alive to keep those wheels running a bit longer and improve connection, and then our sugar cube. The bit of paperwork that comes with it tells us what our functions are and what they do, and then in the back you've got your CVs and all your addresses. You can adjust the chuff rate at how much, every revolution that the wheels go round it barks, which is cool. Now I want to fit a nice piece of brass in here. I'm thinking, right, let's add a bit of weight to help this roll properly. And I also want to make it the right kind of shape to fit all these bits in. So we've got that decoder and all the other bits that fit in there. So the next step for me would be to go on CAD and draw up a nice little item that we would then machine. And that's what I've done. Let's get machining. With that done, I do need to make sure that things fit, so I check that my socket fits. Obviously there's some residue of material in the way still. My speaker will drop in nicely, as well as my capacitor. Once it's off the machine, it's a bit more tiresome because I have to do a bit of a manual operation to modify sizes, but I can do it whilst it's on there. But all the parts fit in, and they're going to be having black tack holding them in. But it's a nice shiny part, but it can't stay that way. I'm going to paint it grey, just put a primer on it, just to stop anything shorting out on any electronics that are inside it. Now fitting it on, I won't need to glue this. I have screws to hold it in place, and there's little lugs from the old weight that was there. So I basically drop this on, slightly snug fits, but that means it's not going to rattle around even with those screws. That's simply then just held in place, and the next plan will be to fit all the electrics. My intention is to shorten the wires for the speaker whilst it's here, because they give you quite a lot of room with the pepper wires that do that, but none of the other wires are going to be shortened. They should work out about right. I guess I could shorten the ones for the capacitor, but I won't. But now I want to put the socket on, and the socket, I just bought these off eBay, not very expensive. You just type in DCC or 8-pin socket. I think loads of these have come up. They're simple enough really, just a bit of solder holding these connectors to a board. Obviously if I run the solder on there for too long, I guess it could desolder or whatever, but I was careful, did it nice and quickly. And now I'm kind of gently putting the wires down the little crevice that I've made for it, and they're currently getting pushed onto some black tack. I bought the black tack off eBay. You get quite a lot of it for like £5, which will last you your entire life of model railway fun. And you can see the bits in there that are kind of just holding it in place, and that will stay nice now. You know, it's just packaged really, really well. I want to do kind of more of a, let's say, a professional install, though there are some things that I would change very much, like the speaker install. The speaker, I think I've kind of dulled out a lot of the sound by burying it into that brass bit. If I could, I guess I could put a hole underneath the tender to let some of the sound escape, but the chamber's really kind of blocked off with that brass. I don't think brass has got much in the way of acoustic, you know, kind of boosting. Could we drown it out maybe? I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. I know my brother's done some fantastic jobs on kind of speaker installs and get some brilliant sound out locos. But as you can see, I'm just installing it all with the black tack, and it's not going to come out very easily. Yes, it will come out with gentle manipulation, but it's not going to rattle loose in use. So now I've just shortened these purple wires, which are just for the speakers, which is nice for me because it just looks neater. I'm not having to kind of gather loads of wire together. Kind of wish now that I did that with the capacitor too. I've just gone and stuffed it in. Actually, no, I did do it with the capacitor. What a liar. I did get that done. Looking back on footage when you're doing the voiceovers, you don't always realise, yeah, you can see my capacitor wires are shorter as well. And it's looking tidy. Honestly, I'm pleased with this, and I'd argue a little bit proud. Now I just want to show you some locos that are in the engine shed. My favourite one here, it's a standard, I think it's 4MT, it'll be the name, it's a 462, beautiful loco. I second, I saw this dripping here. I thought I want to record that because that just, I don't know, there's something nice about that. I'd like to get one for my layouts. I haven't. I've been tempted a few times. I'd like to get a, the 262 3MTs as well as this one. This was a 264. Sorry, I called it a 462. But no, just something really nice about them. And here's some other locos. There's an American Visitor. That's the 33 there. I'm not sure, this isn't an A1X, is it? That's something else. I'm not sure. You can correct me. And then Captain Baxter, looking fantastic. Now, to finish off the loco, obviously the outside look is exactly the same as when I got out of the box. I have added a crew. You can just see them inside. I wanted to add them. They're the ones that came with it, but I painted them up a bit more and tried to make them look a bit nicer. But they're in there. I also wanted to add some coal. So I've got some PVA glue, as you do. You've seen it various times when you've seen my other videos. Trying not to get it everywhere, but I like to get the coal in other places on the tender, so you'll see that I'll splash some over the back end of it and I'll glue them in place, as well as I put some down where not the firebox is, but where they would collect the coal from. So I use isopropyl alcohol to kind of stop that surface tension, so it allows the PVA glue just to wick in, which is wonderful because you don't want it sitting all on the top. You'll be thinking, oh no, it's not going in, I've got big lumps on the surface. But once that's in, I've got a nice big coal load in there. Been contemplating if I went too much. I think it's okay. After that, just running the airbrush over. So I thought I'd use my sleeper grime around the wheel area just to dull out some of the shiny bits of plastic in there and just give everything kind of more of a uniform, dirty look over there. So that was that. And then on the top, I decided to use some of the weathered black colour that I've got. It's all rail match bits, and it's nice. I'm not brave enough to do what I've seen other people do and go to town on it, but the weathered black seems to give a nice effect. So I aim for the black bits with this, so I don't go for the green bits. So I go for the front of the boiler, where you have the smoke box. The smoke box, do that. I do the top of the cab, I do bits over the tender and any other black areas just to pick some highlights. So you got that running plate across the side. I just run some along there, and just try and pick out some highlights with that. I did a tiny little play with weathering powders. I haven't shown it on the video. Just in front of the smoke box for the final one. I did that at the end. But really, just running the airbrush over like this, I'm happy with it, and I'm dazzling you with this light. But the Loco, I don't know, it just looks great. Even though it's an old £70 Loco, you could tell someone it's one of the new 150 or 70 or 80 or £200. I don't know how much Bachmann's going to charge for their new ones. And I think some other companies are doing it as well. I don't want to get the names wrong by saying it. But I think I'll get a new one of these. And if I have to, I can put a plug into the tender, make it DC, and put this chip in a new one. Anyway, let's give it a run round. It's one of my favourite parts of working on something, that build up to this point that you can run your new Loco or old Loco round. It's not a perfect runner. I'll show you in a later clip. The front wheels they come apart when I'm running sometimes, and they're not parallel anymore. They kind of popped apart and gone at a funny angle, and I'm not happy. Anyway, let's enjoy this. So these are my poly wheels. As you can see, they just fall apart and then the mechanism all jams up. So then I have to kind of push them back together. Maybe I need to get it all apart and then glue them together properly, but then the split chassis can't come apart. Or buy some new wheels for it. Or I just have this as more of a shelf queen and I get myself the new V2 sometime because that's lush. But anyway, massive thank you to my channel supporters. You know who you are through Patreon and the channel members, as well as the other people that have been donating to the channel. Huge thank you to you all. It's honestly been something that's going to give me good motivation to keep doing this. So if you'd like to support the channel, go check out the Patreon page or the channel members and yeah, be part of this. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with some of these clips for you to enjoy. I just thought they'd be too good just to leave unseen. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll hopefully see you next time. As always, take care. Goodbye.